special teams, I thought was very, very good in all aspects, from kickoff return to establishing field position to covering kickoffs, punt return, in terms of punt coverage. You know, the whole thing kind of added up to helping us have an extensive field advantage, and so that was big. Defensively, I thought we controlled their ground game, had a great goal line stand. You know, they got yards in passing, and obviously were productive at times with it, and it paid off for them at times, but we did keep them, for the most part, one-dimensional, where offensively I thought we were able to really run and throw the ball very, very well. I thought our receivers had a great day in terms of going up and making catches, and it wasn't just one or two receivers. We had about 4 receivers that went up and out-battled people for the football and came down with it, and so I think we're growing as a football team in all these areas. This week's game, I see them as being talented. Obviously, they're an established program and they're used to success, and we'll come in here, very, very hungry for a win. Yep. And if you really look at it, the quality of player that from day one that we've lost for either part of the season or for the whole season is starting to mount on us a little bit. You know, you can go to guys like Darrell Wood, to Carpenter, to Scipio, to, not only are they guys that are capable of helping you on one side of the ball or the other, but they're also important cogs to what we're all about special teams wise. And I just named 3 guys, but you can go on with a number of other guys. So hopefully that tails off for us, and we can get through some games here without getting too many guys banged up. Well, he'll get a lot more reps, obviously, right now because of Derius being out and in practice, and we'll see how this week's practice goes for him. I think the fact that, he has very, very limited experience, there's not a plan just to put him in necessarily, but, we're hoping that it fits to where he can start gaining some experience. He does have talent, and if he can get experience, we think he can develop into a very fine quarterback. Yeah, we'll start getting Joey Duckworth some snaps. Won't be a lot of snaps because we're going to have to get Greg ready, but we got to get Joey familiar again with what we're all about offensively. He's been running the scout team offense now for a considerable amount of time. He has been showing well as a scout team quarterback, so that part of it's good. But yeah, you definitely have to get a third guy somewhat ready to go. No, not really. They're both mobile quarterbacks. Both of them can throw well. They are both guys that studied the game, and so we got a lot of confidence in obviously both those guys. And the good thing is we don't have to devise an offense around JD. He's ready to execute our entire offense. We'll certainly look at what we want to do. We have not made any changes as of right now, although, a couple things come into play here. Number one, Daz has done some great things for us, and you don't just toss him aside. He did really catch punts well. He's done a great job returning punts, great job returning kickoffs. He just needs to find scrimmage plays. He just needs to take better care of the football, and no one feels worse than he does about it. But you don't throw a guy away because of where he's at right now. But AJ certainly has earned the right to get more reps. And so how that's going to go, you know, I'll get with Coach Albin and we'll certainly decide on that. But I've said this before, we've got the best group of running backs that we've had since we've been here. And, you know, Tim had one carry and looked great on the carry, you know, and Dorian is got great speed, great breakaway threat. He's just continuing to learn, and he'll get better as he gets more reps. So we got really confidence in all those guys and how they're used, you know, who starts, you know, don't really care too much. You know, can you use them situationally? I think that's a possibility, but it's also a possibility for one guy that's doing really well to go in and get it all done. Because they're backs that really, you look at AJ, he has excellent pass receiving skills. I mean, he is really good, got good hands. He's also an excellent pass pro guy, and so, you know, you don't have to situationally use guys with the kind of backs that we got. And so if one guy's in there and he's going strong, you tend to have a tendency to stay with that guy. This will be the first time that we've got all the players together again. Will be this afternoon. As you know, in our format, we have Sunday off, and so, you know, we'll talk to our players. We always talk to our players after we've watched film with them, which will be this afternoon, and then tell them where things sit. So we'll you know, visit with the backs about that before, and other positions about that before we announce anything. You know, they've had outstanding athletes come through their program. You know, they had a guy, I don't know where he got drafted last year, was very high, right? Second or third round. You know, Romo came from there. You look at their history of coaches. You know, they've had a history of very good coaches in the program. They are used to winning. They went to the quarterfinals, I believe it was last year, and so, you know, they're a football team that when they step on the field expects to win, and they're a talented football team, and so, you know, we've got a huge undertaking, and you know, our program has been always built around not, you know, separating teams in a category of we should win or we're going to have to play our best game to win, or, you know, we approach every game the same. I think everybody knows that. We're boring in that regard, and we've worked hard at being boring in that regard, and I think it's the best way for you as a program to have the ability to put together wins after wins after wins, because if you start zeroing in on who some people think you're supposed to beat, and you don't get it done, that's a huge setback for your program in a lot of ways, and we don't see it quite like that. You know, we know we got to play our best football every time we step on the field in order to get wins, and we'll have to do the same thing this week. It's tough to defend when you haven't been defending it, and you know, and they didn't show it till last week, and so we've got a very short time frame here in terms of studying that and getting the defense properly. So it was very effective for them. You know, they're still in the shotgun, but they do have three backs back there with the quarterback, so they're able to run off of the dot, with the dot back, the fake, and the other guy will be the lead back, and then the other guy's the option back. And so with a quarterback that has really good mobility like theirs do, you know, that's a real weapon. And so, you know, it's going to be a challenge for us to get everything that they do defense. Yeah, when you add that into it, yeah, it's you have to prepare for an awful lot, and you know, there'll be some things that our guys will be seeing for the first time. Well, it's how we see the walk-on program. It's been tremendously successful for us. If you go back through the 10 years, I don't know the numbers now, but they are high in terms of guys that came here as walk-ons and we have put on scholarships, and guys that have helped us win football games. You know, I learned that lesson long time ago in my previous job. You know, I learned it when I was a player, for crying out loud. We had, I think, Coach Devaney maybe had over 200 guys on his football team, and they came from all over, man. And so the value of a good walk-on program is immeasurable. I mean, in terms of helping you win football games. We know that, we understand that, and so we work hard at bringing in good walk-ons. Just because a guy is not looked at as a scholarship player doesn't mean that you don't recruit him. You know, and we've got a great school in terms of education, and so that's something that, you know, a lot of times walk-ons will look at, you know, the quality of education that you'll receive, and they like to look at schools where they're given a great chance, you know, and we have nothing preconceived when guys come in here. When they come in here out of high school, you know, they line up, and what they do when they're here determines whether they're first team, second team, third team, whatever, and that philosophy has really served us well. Well, if you go back to my early days of coaching, you know, that's happened, but it's not necessarily a common experience, you know, and you know, here it certainly has not happened, you know, and so I think it's a rarity in college ball to see that, especially at those two positions, you know, because they're so skilled of positions. But it happens, you know, you know, AJ was just a guy overlooked coming out of high school. We were fortunate enough to work at wanting him here as a walk-on, and he wanted to come here, so it just all added up. And JD, you know, somewhat similar in that regard in terms of you saw talent, you know. Didn't know that talent would have to be used right away with those two guys, but as it come out, it's, you know, they're there for a reason. They've earned it. I had him in camp, and so, you know, was able to see from camp that he had skill, you know, that he could throw the ball. It seemed to us to be a very bright guy, so we felt that he'd be a guy that could learn the offense. He had the ability to have good maneuverability, and so that kind of fit what we were all about in terms of looking at a quarterback. I think very much so, and especially this last game. You know, he came in a situation where it's not how he's come into the games so far this year in terms of score and where things are at. In Marshall game, I don't even think he got in till, you know, it was in the close to down the stretch, and but this one, you know, things were still on the line. It was early in the game. You know, he had to play good football for us to win, and so he had a lot of pressure on him. I think as the game went on, he settled. I mentioned this before. Settled more and more into what he had to do to help us win the game, and you know, obviously, I'm sure he was nervous in that situation, but that's all good learning experience, and I think he's handled it well. A great role for us. You know, we feel comfortable using Tim at any given time, and again, you know, he's a bigger back, physical kind of back, but he does have good hands, and he's able to do it all, and he does it all with power. You know, I don't know if you saw in that run the contact that he had going into that, but that was, you know, that was a tough football player going into contact right there. And so, you know, having a guy like him who's a Unity Council member, who's a captain, who's very vocal, and, you know, however it plays out for him, it's a matter of guys, whatever role they're asked to play, you know, they've got to do the best they can, and they got to stay energized, and they got to keep other teammates going. And Tim does a super job of that.